Welcome to Chiro Author Insights. I'm with Dr. Patrick Flynn, and one of the reasons I really wanted to get Dr. Patrick on for this interview is because he represents so powerfully what I believe is the most significant aspect of not only writing a book but practicing chiropractic, which is the principles from which you share your story, you communicate and bring the chiropractic message out into the community. He's the author of the international bestseller, and I love the title of this book. And I love this book when I read this, I wanted to reach out to Dr. Patrick because of the message. You ready? It's the book I Disagree. And I love that title because it's how these two words are the secret to thinking differently and taking control of your health. And I would say your life, and as a practitioner, your practice. And in today's day and age, the culture that we're in at the moment, the challenges, to be able to say I disagree is a really significant and important mindset to be able to have so you can direct your practice, your health, your patient's health and lives in the right direction. He has the practice, the Wellness Way, which you can see there in the background, which is amazingly internationally recognised, an international speaker and teacher, a DC from Parma from 1999. Dr. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Doc. I appreciate being on. Excited to actually cover a lot of good stuff today.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic, and I love your approach. And before we begin, just share a little bit about your life experiences and your philosophy and how that has shaped your approach to practice and to be able to serve in the community.
Well, the book I Disagree, it started out, you'll see a lot of it is based on my wife's story. But before my wife's story, there was a story that led me to actually become a chiropractor and go on with my other degrees and everything. I was myself diagnosed as a juvenile delinquent when I was in 3rd grade. And I always felt like my skin was crawling. Today, they would probably even said I was in the Asperger's realm that way. And it was interesting. So I transpired into my teenage years, not having success in school. Actually, no joke, given a very tough time to my parents and didn't realize that I had some things going on that affected me both neurologically and immunologically, that all of a sudden one day, there was events that came about and I ended up in the chiropractic office. And no joke, happened. I started to get adjusted, and he wasn't even the realm of the way we practice. He is actually more in a pain medical model, but even though he didn't fully adapt the chiropractic philosophy, he still delivered an adjustment that did some change to my body. And I even told him that how my sinuses started to change. Did they fully clear up? Absolutely not. But did they change as I was going through other health issues? I saw a change with a lot of things. And that stemmed my brain of going, my goodness, I need to look into this. And then I actually met a chiropractor that was just in love with BJ's philosophy before I was even at chiropractic school. So I got my first green books. I actually got introduced to Reggie Gold. And I was enamored. I was enamored by the understanding of what happened there, because I was like, oh my goodness, there's an innate intelligence, universal intelligence. And I was like, it makes so much sense. Then I go to chiropractic school at Palmer and I'm like, this is nothing what they're doing. Nothing. So I actually felt like a misfit my whole life. I went to chiropractic school, I felt like a misfit because I realized all chiropractic school is today is just a medical education, which gives us no understanding that I was at the fountainhead. And so as I went for my chiropractic and nutrition, other degrees and stuff, and immunology and everything, what I did was I never lost the teachings of what BJ had, because once you understand the background, the philosophy, what I practice today is all based on that philosophy. And it stems from the simple aspect of just innate intelligence alone. Now, let me give you an example of how the whole world has lost its freaking mind, actually. If you look at the concept of this, and this is what separates chiropractic from every other natural healing art on the planet. And it comes from a simple fact, and I'm going to paraphrase it just in a way to put it in modern day language. The body does not make mistakes. The body does not. It does not at all. Innate intelligence is always trying to adapt so it can survive. That's it. That's actually the basis of chiropractic itself right there, that there's an innate intelligence governing all things to get you to adapt. And now you can say homeostasis, which is true. You can see, so when functional medicine, when integrative, when medical talks about the body made a mistake, how now you view the body and how to take care of it and what to do with it is dramatically different on your clinical approach. So therefore, when you look at a lab, You can look at a CBC, a CMP, a hormone panel, anything that way. And if you can't come from the concept that the body is trying to adapt and survive every situation, you're going to look at it from a pathological integrative function medicine standpoint and think of that you are the smart individual that has to change this broken down machine. So then your approach is clinically dramatically different. And so I realized, and then the sad part, and I apologize for this, the sad part of chiropractic, they've moved in that realm. And so I had to go, I disagree. Not only the fact with the medical field, which is that's where when I met my wife at the last trimester in July 30th, we're in July right now, 30th of 1999, I didn't graduate till October. I met this woman, and that's what the whole book about I Disagree is. So I had this basis of my philosophy. I'm not even in clinical practice, even though I'm applying it through student clinic and my undergraduate. And all of a sudden, I meet her and they said, you can't have kids. I'm like going, that makes no sense. Innate intelligence, the body doesn't make mistake. If there's not, there has to be some interferences. But you know something is this? And that's where chiropractic has lost its way, because chiropractic has become a trauma. Even just you call yourself a subluxation-based profession. We all know this. That's not the only stress to the body. BJ even said that's not the only stress to the body. That's why his biggest book, Didi's biggest book he ever wrote, was about autosuggestion, because I can prove beyond a shadow of doubt that mental stress will kill a woman faster than anything, more than subluxation will ever interfere with the nervous system. And that's where chiropractors don't like that. I'm like, well, why don't you go back to our original foundation and understand what BJ and Didi put down? And what I just did and how I developed what I call the Wellness Way approach is nothing more than based on chiropractic principles, but now took those amazing principles and said, yes, subluxation, trauma, it is devastating. It's a major stressor that can lead to any disease on the planet because it's a stress to the body and it puts your body in fight or flight. But so do your foods. So do your mental stress. So do the toxins that they want to inject everybody with. So does all these things. And people say, well, Doc, where'd you come up with this great principle? And I always have to tell people I did not. A wonderful man that took so much criticism his whole life actually did, and his name is BJ Palmer.
Beautiful. And I think, you know, within your material, you say the system is broken, the healthcare system is broken. And
yep,
I agree. And here's, you know, your book's called I Disagree. Now, you say the system is broken, and I agree. And you're so passionate about, you know, changing the trajectory of people's health and quality of life, particularly in chronic situations, but you're doing this through the lens of chiropractic. And
yes,
the Wellness Way's 20th year anniversary, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we're on our 21st year. And so we started in December 27th of 1999. And I started out, and not a joke, I started in an abandoned warehouse with $500. And now we have well over, 90 offices across the world, international. We're getting bigger every single month. And because you know why? Just like BJ grew chiropractic based on its clinical results, that's why everything that you see that we put out there is about the clinical successes. And I built my whole career, I know it sounds funny, on fertility. And that's how, now it doesn't mean we'd have other things come in of deep chronic illness. But see, I tell people, chronic illness is not a chiropractic thing. Chronic illness is a medical thing. See, but physiology and function and biochemistry and immunology is a chiropractic thing, because we are supposed to know that better than any doctor on the planet. That's why we are doctors of health. Do you say? So the system that they call healthcare has nothing to do with health. That's why right now, when we look at immune function, there's no doctors that know better about immune function than we are supposed to. But our whole education, Palmer, our whole education in life, it doesn't matter if it's Australia, it doesn't matter if it's overseas in Europe, and their education, all a US-based chiropractic education is just trying to pass basically medical boards to get you to be a trauma-based, pain-based doctor.
And then you have this opportunity to uncover the truth of chiropractic and then look through that lens.
Yep.
Your practice of the opportunities are there to serve, to impact, to restore integrity to the nervous system, therefore the immune system, because the immune system is a circulating nervous system, yep, and therefore the capacity for the body to self-heal, self-regulate, and self-organize.
Yep. And those principles were set down in a long time before you and I were even born.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's immutable, it's unchangeable. Nothing is different now from when those principles were established. And the reason I wanted to get deep into this conversation with you is because a lot of chiropractors are writing books, and we spoke about this before we got onto this call, are writing books on practice success, growing your practice, a whole range of marketing-based or business-based processes. And yet, if we come back to that principle, the foundation of chiropractic, the capacity to achieve those same outcomes is entirely there because the philosophy is intact. The integrity of chiropractic is complete. And that's really what your book demonstrates and what the success of your practices has, been able to achieve. So I really wanted to bring this sense to the listeners and the viewers that chiropractic is enough. So I'd love you to just talk on that point, because your lens is chiropractic. Your book is chiropractic, but it speaks to the community about their challenges, but through that chiropractic principle.
Right. And I think that's why, if you ever go back, and if I were to dig into your history and people that are actually truly passionate about chiropractic, they have a story. They have a story. See, how did I disagree, and me being a chiropractor, become one of the most known hormone books internationally? How is that possible? Because the story and the clinical results I followed, and I've always taught every doctor, your greatest marketing tool is the clinical success where everybody else failed. Period. There is no billing scheme. There is no advertising post that you're going to put out. There's no anything better than your clinical success and walking people through the understanding, the backbone, the philosophy that actually gets people to make those changes that lead to their success, and it spreads like wildfire. And so all we did, my team, and it's not a joke, my team said, Doc, we got to put this story into a book form. And I'm like, okay, because I'm by nature, I'm just a clinician. I by nature, people say, well, Doc, you guys have offices all over the world. I know, but that's where my focus was clinical results. And that's why I sit there and go, if we can share those clinical results with people's stories, because your best speakers, your best books are actually stories. Your best speakers are the best storytellers. Your best books are people that can tell a story with the written word. And so me and my wife shared our story and our journey based on the foundations that what we actually practice today. And once again, like you said, when you're talking about universal principles and you're talking about innate intelligence and things, those things are unchangeable. It's like the law of gravity. We know that. And therefore, what I said 21 years ago is no different than I said today. I'm just better at communicating it. That's it. And you can do it by the written word. You can do it by social media. You can do it by a lot of things. But it was quite interesting that the minute that we put that thing into a written word, Doc, I'll tell you this surprised me. I didn't realize the power when people have a book, they actually think you're smarter. They actually really do think you're smarter. I don't know why. Because like all of a sudden it's like, here's this book and here's the author. I'm like going, I was the same before the book was actually written. It's just that to people, especially our public perception, a book has a lot of power. It really does.
Absolutely. I often tell people and remind people of just the word itself, authority. The first part of that word is author. So the moment you become an author, you demonstrate authority, and you aren't a different person. You don't necessarily have more knowledge, skills, or remarkable abilities that are transformed by the very writing of the book, but your perception has changed, and therefore but you do galvanize some of those skills, knowledge, and ability in the writing process to make sure you're getting clear. And the clearer you get on the message, the more compelling that message becomes, the more capable you are of delivering it. So the book it changes you in the writing of it, but more importantly, it gives the opportunity for that message to get out there. And, you've said you've come from, some areas of your background, represent a challenge. How did you get from that? You said you needed some guidance from that. How did you get from the idea of I'm going to write a book to writing a book? Because you had the principle and you had the story, but getting into words, that's sometimes more of a challenge.
Well, it is, because what happens is sometimes, I know this is probably going to contradict it to what every author will tell you. Everybody thinks, well, I got to put facts out there. I got to put facts out there. I got to put facts out there. I'm like, you know something? I want you to do this. Doc, are you married? And it's not a joke. I don't know who you are personally, but are you married?
Yes, I am.
Okay. How long have you been married for?
31 years.
31 years. So the first day that you met your wife, here's what happens. Did you walk up there and say, honey, fact, I'm going to be a great husband. I'm going to be a great father. And you need to marry me.
No, I walked up and said, can I carry your books? And she said,
that's
no.
Right.
Walk in.
Exactly. See, what happens is this.
The story.
See, that's the one thing about it, and I tell people is this: there's an emotional story. That's why movies. That's why all these things come up. And I'm saying, listen, I'm not going to share facts. That's clinical things. You're saying, and even though the book has a great basis of physiology and stuff like that, but I knew the fact that if all you did was do facts, all a person could say is, I don't believe that. But one thing that's capturing is actually a story of somebody's experience. It's why in the United States, People magazine is still one of the most read magazines, even though we don't even have magazines that much, because the internet, people love a story. People are attracted and want to know about your story. So if you're going to do it, so when the book was written, I'm like, listen, this is not an educational book. You want an educational book, go to school, buy those, buy a textbook. I have a ton of them, okay? But if I want to, but if something that's gonna lead me to change my thinking, it's gonna be based on somebody's story. It's why, once again, if you watch any movie, it's the stories that emotionally move you. That's the thing that you gotta do when you write.
Yeah, perfect. And one thing it's obviously, had a massive impact on your practice, on your career and your brand. So we spoke about that. There's this change between you write the book and you're perceived differently afterwards.
Yep.
What level of magnitude has firstly, you've spoken philosophically about your principles and you've
Yep.
through story embodied that within your book, but now it's out there in the community. What are people now, what impact is that happening on the community, on your practice and the relationship between the two?
Well, to be totally honest, I didn't want to do the book. I did, because I just wanted to open a ton of practices all over the world. I just wanted to teach doctors all this stuff all over the world. And it was my team that convinced me and I fought them. I'm like, won't make a difference. I'm still the same guy. I still share the same things. I can go out and speak, and I'm not joking. Now I sit back and go, man, you were an idiot saying that. I should have wrote this book like 10 years ago. Okay. Because once again, when people hold that physical book, and Durham, within 2 weeks, within less than 24 hours, it was one of Amazon's top selling books. In less than 2 weeks, it was international bestseller. And I was like, and then people, podcasts, everything started to reach out to me. I'm like, I've been doing the same thing for 19 years at this time. And now that there's a book, now you're interested in what I have to say? I'm not joking, Doc, just being totally honest with you. I was like, and that's sometimes why it frustrates me, being totally transparent to our chiropractic audience that way. I was frustrated. I'm like going, you want to talk to me now that this book right here, became a bestseller? This is the same thing I did 20 years ago, clinically. And it was surprising. So it blew my mind away a little bit. It really did. And I can honestly tell you, from a standpoint of being a practitioner, I was like, I don't want to write a book. I don't. Nope. I had a ton of offices already. I had all some of that. I'm like, I have great success. People will listen to what I have to say based on my clinical results. But you'd be surprised. And I still do this. I walk out to, and obviously I have a huge studio and offices all over. But my main clinic out of Green Bay, my original first clinic that I'm still in today, I still walk around the waiting room and people grab the book and say, can you please sign it? I'm like, why? Why would you want me to sign it? I'm just a doc. I'm just a person that's trying to bring good information out there. It's amazing the psychology of people when it happens. Blew my mind away. Totally never thought about it.
It is. It's amazing, incredible. And the next thing I really just want to dive deep into is you write it not so much for you, but for the people and the impact that it has. Tell some of the stories that, you've written this book, people read the book and they reach out and they tell you that they've experienced a story. Tell me one of those stories and what that has meant to you, having that feedback, having that interaction with your audience, with your reader.
Well, here's what happens and this is daily. If I were to show you my Facebook, okay? If I were to even show you my Facebook here, one thing that I think to me is one of the most emotional things on the planet is when, just like I believe that's why the book is a lot of basically, it's me and my wife interjecting her emotions through the process of, imagine, I want you to do this. And let's say you're a female doctor right now. And the reason I say this is because you tell a woman that you can't have a child, it actually can destroy a woman mentally and physically. And so what happened is the most impactful thing that I absolutely love about it was the fact that it's like, I can show you hundreds of emails per month, hundreds that are just based on, Doc, I've been trying for 7 years. Doc, I've been trying for 6 years, 12 years, 5 years. I've been through IVF. I've been through in vitro. I've been through Clomid. I've been through every drug on the planet to have a baby. Please, I beg of you, I will pay, do, travel, anything it needs to get under your care. And it was like, and that was the part that still to this day is seeing now. I give you an example. There's a woman down in New Orleans. Okay. She used to be part of the, let's just say without disclosing stuff, she used to be part of the football team's cheerleading squad. And it was kind of funny. She had such a bad health condition of hyperthyroidism to where they almost ripped out one of her organs. And they said, Doc, my doctor said I have an autoimmune condition, Graves. My immune system made a mistake. It's attacking my thyroid, which right there should tell you right now, the two aspects of foundational care make no sense. If you build your foundation that the immune system made a mistake, everything that you do clinically after that is a mistake. So compared to saying, no. The immune system is responding to some stressor that's causing damage to the thyroid. Now it's a totally different thing because you look at the body actually didn't make a mistake. So, and therefore, I can't have children. They told me don't get pregnant, blah, 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 blah. And actually right now, I think she's about 33 weeks along. Now, because why? Because having that philosophy and those principles, applying to clinical practice. But when she got handed the book from her friend that suffered from fertility problems, and she goes, I don't know how to explain everything to you, but I can tell you this, please read this book. And she called up to be a patient. And she got great care by one of my doctors here. And once again, it turned out to be another. And I can honestly tell you, thousands and thousands of women have succeeded to get pregnant based on what we've done.
It's beautiful. And, that's really that's the chiropractic story, changing and saving lives. It makes such a profound, powerful impact throughout the world. And the fact that you just shared, those stories come to you because of your book, because of your success in practice. But there's an interrelationship between them, but it has come from that foundation of principled chiropractic, the lens through which you look upon people who enter your practice. And I think that's so profound for practitioners to realize they may not work with hormonal situations or scenarios or pregnancy. They may have their own specialization. It may be sports people, it may be executives, it may be digestive disorders, but the same lens informs the same, presentation, all the different presentations with the opportunity to influence in the same way. And so every practitioner can come from a philosophically grounded way to share their story, to share the patient's story, to create an opportunity for healing to take place in the mind of the patient even before they walk into the practice, but as a catalyst for them to walk into the practice. So I think the way you present this story is so compelling, and that's why, again, I wanted to reach out because I know, I read your book, I followed your story, and you are just an advocate for chiropractic and, a servant of the community with what you're doing. You're an expansive model. You're just, you're a game changer, which is why I disagree with such a profound and powerful statement. But more than that, you're a life changer. And I just wanted to thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for the impact you've had for your book. And, I just wanted to really acknowledge you for that. And just if there's any conclusive statement you'd like, as we draw this to an end, is there any message you have for the chiros out there about their role, what they can do, how they can impact? I'm sure that they now know with the authority that you're coming from that this message is important for them to listen to. So what is your message?
Well, one thing is this, I can honestly tell you, you should be extremely proud that you're a chiropractor because you have the foundational principles that can impact every person on this planet. Now you say, why, doc? Because my friend has a really good medical doctor. My friend has a really good DO. There's one thing that they do not have, and that's our foundational principles, because our foundational principles give guidance to how to keep the body extremely healthy from the day that the child's born to the day that God takes them back, because that's what chiropractic was actually based on. It's based on principles that if this interview is watched 200 years from now, the same principles that govern the body will still govern them then. And even know that when we have other competing healthcare professions, they always have to change their foundational principles from germ theory to genetics to the next thing. Actually, chiropractic never lost its way. Chiropractors did. I'm trying to bring them back to where we started.
Perfect. Dr. Patrick Flynn, you are an incredible servant of chiropractic. You're, again, a life changer and a game changer. Thank you for your time, again, for your contribution. Continue doing that great work. And thank you for everything you do.
Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it.